What's an insignificant thing that triggers the shit out of you? The difference between Hulu's show volume and its ad volume. I'm literally considering canceling it because of this. If you try to watch something to fall asleep to and you're just dozing off, hope to hell you're not watching Hulu because you're about to be hit with an air raid warning in 5 minutes. Actors waving coffee cups around in scenes where they are supposed to be full drives me nuts. Fill them with water or even epoxy for the wait, for crying out loud. Edit. Rewarding to see how many people have noticed the empty cup. A few TV and movie production people are in the thread explaining why the cups need to not be live coffee, but there are a number of great suggestions that seem simple and workable. Fingers crossed that either actors are able to fake it better, or the props can give proper heft without endangering the production. I never understood not just putting water in them, and they always put the cup down on a desk and you can hear them make the empty cup noise. They always take that first sip and practically upend the cup when a cup that was actually full of liquid would only need to be tipped slightly to drink from. That upending infuriates me so much. Have they never seen anyone sip a coffee? Aren't they supposed to be professional actors? How do they have this blind spot in their acting? What's the director doing in all this? People with no spatial awareness, chatting in doorways blocking the way, leaving their shopping carts in the middle of the aisle, etc. etc. When I was in college, I worked in a student union bowling alley. It was a pretty sweet gig, and most of the people, all students except for 3, were decent people overall. The one that will stick with me forever, though, was a guy named Wes, real name. Shout out to you, Wes. If you see this, he was the only person I've worked with in my entire life who had near-perfect spatial awareness. We worked as one. Our main duties during the evening were doing shoe rentals, checking out lanes, selling beers and other drinks, taking money, etc. It was hectic behind the counter for just 2 people on busy nights, but we worked in absolute harmony. We always knew where the other person was. We could toss shoes to each other the way pro basketball players do. No-look passes, never bumped into each other, never spilled beers dodging each other. Working with Wes was the most oddly enjoyable job experience I've ever had. Every night was like an unrehearsed ballet that still went perfectly. We span in gentle circles there, a moving groove of grace, a dance, a waltz of rhythm fair, a swing in slender space. We whirled and tapped and tripped. We stepped in spirals small, we swirled and slapped our feet and skipped, but didn't touch at all. And when the dance at night would end, with final jumps and kicks, I said farewell and watched my friend, and wished we touched our dicks. My girlfriend is really bad with this. Our apartment has a narrow spot separating the kitchen and dining room, which is her favorite place to stand. I finally said something and she was so embarrassed I felt bad about it. Are you dating my dog? They sound eerily similar. Your dog is acting as a toll booth, one pet to get into X room lol. At least that's more dogly than my dog. She just runs from me waging her tail whenever she wants pets, and won't come but just looks at me with excited eyes, and when we play fetch, she grabs the ball and runs off with it. Now my cat, that's a real dog right there. She comes when I call her, will lay on me and get pets all day, and if I throw a little ball for her, she chases it, picks it up, and drops it right next to me. I almost got into a fight with 2 fans of the opposing team after a hockey game because they got to the bottom of a huge escalator with like 100+ people on it, took 1 step off, and just stopped. My friends and I were right behind them and had to push them out of the way to avoid being crushed by the wall of humanity behind us, and they started posturing and yelling at us like we were the idiots. I have to stop reading this thread. Yeah. This gets me in a fighting mood. Just got back from Schiphol Airport, so I feel the pain. I was at an event where they had a buffet set up at the escalator landing. A line started forming and ran right up to the people stepping off. I walked up to the middle of the line and yelled that people needed to move now. I'm quiet and non-confrontational. Whole thing stressed the hell out of me. And then you say excuse me, and they look at you like you are the asshole. That was the guy who happened to walk into my, well, not mine, but it's my workplace, diner while on his phone and post up at the ATM, elbow resting on the top. Seeing he was on his phone, I said excuse me, loudly enough for him and the others in the area around to hear. He didn't even react, so I reached out to start touching the screen with a very loud excuse me, I need the ATM please. He turned to me, grunted something and said, well, you could have said excuse me. I have no patience for rude assholes anymore, so I looked him dead in the eye and said, I did say excuse me, twice. He mumbled some shit and kept on moving. Jackass. Those people that are chatting in a hallway but when done just immediately turn around and walk instead of making sure there's no traffic coming on that pivot side. My wife is terrible with this when we're grocery shopping. She's usually pretty good, but once we enter a supermarket, those instincts go way low. Example, she'll grab a cart, but then stop and stand directly in the entrance while trying to get her shopping list out. I have to remind her keep walking so people can get by, and every time she goes oh Jesus whoops. My mother, while shopping, does this. No idea where she is or what she is blocking, like going down an aisle, parking the cart on the right, then standing in the middle, looking at everything in the middle. She's got no concept that people are waiting for her to move. She also keeps her purse on the top of the cart, half open, with her phone sitting directly on top. Then she will put it down, leave the cart in the middle of the aisle on one side of a big section in Target, then fuck off 10 yards away. I move her cart and tuck her phone and keep an eye on everything. We just don't shop together often. It is a blooming miracle she's never had her phone or purse stolen. She can also walk into the same store she's been in hundreds of times and the same mall she's been in more times, walk back out, and not know what direction she's come from or where to go next. She's a hot mess. The shopping cart thing makes me so angry. How are people so oblivious to simple shopping etiquette and common courtesy? What makes me even angrier is when I say excuse me so they can move their damn cart and they get annoyed. This happened to me a few weeks ago. A woman was parked in the middle of the aisle looking for something on the shelf. I politely said excuse me, can I squeeze by you? She snapped at me, well I guess so since her time is more important than mine. I loudly mumbled, well don't block the damn aisle and there won't be an issue. Legit, I feel like most people do not have spatial awareness. It's absolutely insane, especially when those people are next to you on the highway. They just don't give a fuck. They're where they want to be, so fuck everyone else. Like my roommate in college who was 18, had a 35-year-old Chinese girlfriend who he'd talked to on the phone 100% of the time he was at the dorm. Didn't matter if it was 8 a.m. and I was trying to sleep, 5 p.m. and trying to study, or 2 a.m. while trying to hang out with the girl. He was on that fucking telephone no matter what. I don't think there was one time in his entire life that he asked himself, I wonder how my actions make other people feel. Fuck you, Ernest. It's a learned behavior. Children are oblivious. The whole world revolves around them. They have to be taught. Example A. 2 days ago, I was in a downtown area at a four-way stoplight. A group of young teenagers go bounding across the crosswalk, and this one little fucker, probably about 15, saunters across ... slowly. The light changes, full on green for at least 5 seconds. I wait for him to finish his saunter. He stops dead center in front of my car, oblivious to me in the light, and turns back to call to, presumably, his parents, guardians who were not crossing. So I laid on the horn. He jumped about 4 feet straight up, and then gave me the what? Shoulder shrug. He should have known better, but I blamed his demo's parents. I'm still irked about that several days later. Fuck that family. leaving their shopping carts in the middle of the aisle. Had a lady do this the other day at the store. To sweeten the deal, she was still with the cart, had it parked sideways, and on her phone looking at something. There was another lady just looking at her but not saying anything, I assume out of a misplaced sense of being polite, but immediately chimed up with, "Pardon us, ma'am. I hate to interrupt your blocking of the entire walkway, but other people have to get through here." The look of embarrassment, disdain was the cherry on top for me. Reminds me of the time this guy just left his cart and was getting in his car, and I'm here in my late 20s but with a baby face so I could get away with it. And this guy is maybe 50 and I'm like, "Excuse me sir, are you done with your cart?" Smiled and he was like, "Yeah thank you," and I'm like, "No problem, I hope when I get to your age people will help me out too." It's like parking away from everyone else in the parking lot, and you come back and now there's a cluster of cars around yours. Mate, this drives me insane also, and it happened only just the other day. I've gone to the supermarket early doors to collect my wife's prescription. I park up in a relatively empty car park only for this dingbat to swing into the very next space when there was 30 or so at the side, in front and behind. They even had the audacity to smile and say good morning as my caveman DNA started to rise. For me it's people pulling out in front of me on the road when there is no one behind me for miles. Like, I get you have to quick get in when there is heavy traffic flow, but you could have waited 5 seconds and had all the room you needed to pull onto the road. You'll love this then. When staying away on my own a few years ago, I went down to breakfast, was taken to a table for two with a free newspaper on it and asked if I wanted coffee. All good so far. When the waiter left, I got up to get my breakfast from the buffet, and when I got back to my table there was another man sat on the opposite side of my table eating breakfast. The whole room was empty apart from my table. The waiter appeared with my coffee and I thought, there's no way I'm having this guy take my table and my coffee. If he thinks I'm just going to feel awkward and sit elsewhere, then he can think again. So I sat down, smiled politely, said good morning, and poured myself a coffee. We then sat at a table for two opposite each other in silence while we both ate our breakfast. Every so often he'd look up and catch me staring, thinking, WFT is this guy doing at my table? I finished my breakfast but determined not to rush off. Feeling uncomfortable at my own table, I dug in a little bit and asked if he would pass me the free newspaper he had put with his keys and wallet like it was his. This guy, seriously. Anyway, he finished quite quickly and then got up. I smiled and said goodbye and he left. I felt quite proud of not being forced off my own table, as I'm quite socially awkward really, but it didn't matter as today I held my ground. As I was telling someone later that day what had happened, that some guy tried to steal my breakfast table, it dawned upon me that actually there was probably a much more likely explanation. There were two waiters working the breakfast room and that this man had likely been given my table first, put his paper down, and got up to get his breakfast. Meanwhile, the other waiter stishes me right up. I then realized that from his point of view, in a totally empty restaurant, I sat down at his table, drank his coffee, stared at him and then took his newspaper, all while smiling politely. At least I wasn't socially awkward though. Plunging raw eggs into boiling water, or hot steam, rapidly denatures the outermost proteins of the white, which reduces their ability to bond with the membrane. https://www.cooksillustrated.com/articles/168 Easy Peel Hard Cooked Eggs. I follow this up with a 5-minute ice bath so that my eggs don't overcook. I also find the peel comes away ridiculously smoothly when they're peeled while submerged in water, a trick I learned from watching cooks make soy sauce burned eggs. I had to resort to a rubbing alcohol, water mix from a squirt bottle plus some cheap white clothes in my car in order to get rid of the streaks inside my windshield. Part of me went insane and started fantasizing about power washing the inside of the car. I didn't know this simple thing triggered me so. Top and waiting on staff here. To polish cutlery for use at dinners we used a wine bucket with a whole lemon cut in half. Fill it with boiling water. Over the steam from the hot water goes the upturned glass. Make it foggy inside and out, then away from the steam. With a tea towel folded, pinch the inside and outside of walls of the crystal, turn the glass by its base, rotate a few times, then hold it up to a light to ensure no marks remain. I refuse to buy a car unless they will remove it for free. Good on you, that shit is rotten. My sister said this to her dealership, referring to their decal on the car. Take that off please unless you're going to discount the car by $1,000 to compensate me for my advertising for you. Sales guy, we have those on all cars we sell here. Don't care. Take it off my car please. Sales guy, you'd really walk away from your dream car over a decal? You're damn right. And I bet they gladly took the decal off. There's probably 10 more dealerships in the area that would be willing to make that deal. Turns out the buyer holds all the leverage if you're willing to walk out of negotiations. Unfortunately that's just a shitty salesman. I actually sell cars at a dealership where we also put our decal stickers on. I've had a few customers over the years ask to take it off and the conversation always goes, "Take the decal off please." Sure thing, no worries. I'll make sure they do that while they're getting your car ready. Most sales consultants aren't trying to fuck you over. I totally get it. I've got a couple of friends who are also in the car business. I've been on the wholesale side of that business too. You guys aren't nearly as bad as the stereotype tends to paint you. My sister is a true buffalo though. She definitely would have walked across the street over a decal. She's got a hardcore rage simmering just below the surface. I don't know how her husband puts up with her. OMG yes. We took our car in for a free recall service at a different dealership than we bought our car at. They removed and probably threw away our license plate holder and put on their own dealer advertising license plate holder. WTF. Yes. Yes. Less than a month ago, I wouldn't take a car off the lot until they removed their license plate holder with the name of the dealership. They initially said no. I asked for $100/year as advertising. They said no, obviously. So I was literally in the process of canceling a $45,000 check when they finally agreed to replace it. Lol. You get it. Dealerships are a dime a dozen. Stand up to take your money across the street and all of a sudden they want your business again. I don't care so much about the license plate holder, because any idiot with a screwdriver can remove it and toss it in the trash. I always insist that any stickers or badges be removed though. They have the tools and experience removing them, and I'm not trying to screw up the paint job on my brand new car. I've only purchased 2 brand new, not used, cars in my life thus far, but neither dealership hassled me about removing their stuff. When I park far away from others in a nearly empty parking lot, between the lines, occupying exactly one space, and come out to find someone parked right next to my driver's side door, I didn't do anything to you. Why did you decide to do that? There are over 50 empty spots. This happened to me when I was 9 months pregnant, but they parked over the line and so close, in an empty parking lot no less. I literally had to crawl in from the passenger side. I will never forget that. Probably the angriest I've ever been in my life. Lol. I had this happen to me, except crawling in via the passenger side wasn't going to happen. Tiny car, so I waited because I had no choice. When the lady came out I got my Karen on and gave her a lecture about using the white lines as a guide to where the car should end up when parked. I was 8.5 months pregnant. It was hot and I was over it. The lady was embarrassed but I didn't care. still don't feel guilty. There's this little printout I carry around with me for those drivers. You can find it online. It says many 3-year-olds have trouble staying in the lines. It's a coloring image of a turtle. Maybe if you practice it will help with your parking. I used to work next to a tattoo shop in a very busy, touristy area. One of the artists drew a cartoon of Mickey Mouse giving the finger and it said, "Thanks for parking so close. Next time leave a can opener so I can get my car out, you selfish piece of shit." He copied and gave out hundreds of copies. I had them in my car for years.